Saying that, Huang Yueli's wrist shook. Li Shui'er felt a strong wave of profound energy emitting from the sword blade, and her two arms were jolted till it was sore and tingling with numbness. Unable to bear with the pain, she was unable to hold on to the long sword. Following that, her entire body fell heavily outwards as she spat out a mouthful of blood. Seventh Princess, Your Highness, what happened to you? The guards had not been able to react, and it was until Li Shui'er crashed against the corner of the wall before they regained their senses as they hurriedly pounced over to check on her condition. Li Shui'er coughed in a hoarse voice as dull pains were felt from her chest. Following every cough she made, bloody foam kept spilling out from the corners of her mouth. She wanted to lift her hand and wipe the blood stains from the corners of her mouth, but the minute she moved, she realized that her two arms were painful like hell as it felt extremely heavy, and she was unable to lift it up. She lowered her head to take a look and realized that her two arms were not able to straighten, and it could only droop downwards. At that very moment, her eyes opened wide as her heart entered a state of shock and fear. Just at that instant that Huang Yueli shook her off, that powerful, profound energy completely shattered the bones in her arms, and it had broken into chunks, totally unable to be used. Li Shui'er suffered an extreme amount of pain as she almost shed tears from it. Moreover, something else made her even more angry. Huang Yueli held her precious snake-shaped long sword, and after she looked at it against the light, her forehead creased into a frown as she said unsatisfyingly, "This sword is refined is such a lousy way. The fusion intensity of the materials is way too low. It seems like the armament master's handling power of material was done rather badly, and this side here is slightly crooked. Looks like the skill towards the shape forming stage at the end is way below quality. TSK. This must be a junior who had just rose to a 4th-tier armament master, using this type of workmanship as practice material. This simply cannot be shown on stage." Li Shui'er fumed with anger till her eyes turned red. This sword was her precious baby. It was something that her master had personally refined, a 4th-tier armament master's works. If it was brought out in an auction house, the amount would be at a heavenly cost, and she was the envy of so many young practitioners. The result, however, was criticized by Huang Yueli to be totally worthless, as though it was a piece of rubbish which was to be thrown away directly. What's more, after Huang Yueli had finished her ridicule, feeling that it was a great pity as she shook her head, in the end, she actually kept away that sword. Li Shui'er stared daggers at her with her eyes till it was almost fuming with fire. Since she didn't take a fancy to the sword, why didn't she return it back to her? She acted like it was such a difficult task for her to accept the sword. Wasn't it a piece of trash? Why did she have to keep it? As though she had heard the thoughts in Li Shui'er's mind, Huang Yueli threw her a fleeting glance and replied, "Even though it's a piece of trash, even if I were to return it to the furnace, I won't be able to save it. However, it was after all a piece of your goodwill. If I were to reject the 7th princess's gift, it would seem that I'm disrespectful, and if I'm pinned with this crime, wouldn't I get into big trouble?" This was throwing Li Shui'er's earlier threats right back into her face. Li Shui'er felt that the wounds on her face had gotten even more painful, as though someone had slapped her viciously on the face. What type of status did she have? She had always been held in the palms of others since she was young. And because she had an innate talent for becoming an armament master, even if she were to go to the Sky Cloud City and enter the Celestial Light Academy, she was still able to be in the same standing as though she was back in her own country. This was her first time that she was being humiliated viciously. Li Shui'er gritted her teeth and couldn't wait to tear Huang Yueli apart with her own hands. But too bad she was not even able to climb up on her own. You can also listen on. Li Shui'er stared fiercely at Huang Yueli, and every single word hissed out from her clenched teeth. "All of you attack. Capture this little slut. All of you golden scale guards attack together. Whoever managed to capture her, I'll ask my master to refine a profound armament for him personally." The people whom Li Shui'er had led here were not only her own guards. The mass included quite a number of golden scale guards who had been deployed from Limajuan. Initially, these golden scale guards' hearts were pounding hard when they saw Li Shuer being easily defeated by Huang Yueli, and they didn't dare to attack. However, the bait that Li Shuer threw out was simply too tempting. Who on heavens doesn't know that Li Shuer's master was a fourth-tier armament master? A profound armament personally refined by a fourth-tier armament master. Such a great thing was something that they would not even dare to dream of having. Now that such a large meat pie had fallen onto their heads, whoever doesn't catch it would be the biggest idiot on earth. For cultivating practitioners, their only aim was to strive towards higher heights. If an opportunity knocks on your door and you don't grab it, then there's no chance to break through at all. So upon hearing that, all the golden scale guards' eyes flashed a tint of greediness as they looked at one another before they moved towards where Huang Yueli was. All of them had the same idea in their minds. From the looks of it, Huang Yueli's power had indeed gone out of their calculations and could not be at the ordinary first-degree realm. Her battle power should have exceeded by several little small realms. If they were to go up against her one by one, they would probably not be Huang Yueli's match at all. But their biggest advantage was the huge number of people they had. If they were to consolidate their attacks together against the single Huang Yueli, they might not need to struggle that much. Besides, the Golden Scale Guards were totally different from those trashy guards. The Golden Scale Guards were all practitioners in the second-degree realm. As for Huang Yueli, who had just broken through to the second-degree realm, so the difference in their abilities were originally not too huge. Including the fact that they had so many people, how would they not able to capture her? With this thinking set in their minds, the Golden Scale Guards didn't hesitate further. All of them drew out their swords and, outdoing the others, to unleash their attacks towards Huang Yueli. Li Shuer lay crippled on the ground, but her eyes were glued on Huang Yueli, just waiting to see how she was going to be defeated and dragged in front of her to see her pathetic sight. Although she was not able to beat Huang Yueli personally, but that was because she had slighted her enemy earlier. With so many men charging together, would that little slut be able to fly up into the sky to avoid all of these? In actual fact, Huang Yueli didn't have the ability to fly into the sky or burrow herself into the ground, but she had the ability to defeat the opponent with her outstanding power directly. A group of fiendish golden-scaled guards charged towards her, but they were not even able to touch the corners of her sleeve. As Huang Yueli looked at this bunch of golden-scale guards, the corners of her mouth gave out a chilling laughter. Overestimating your own strength. She did some footwork and turned her body. Her pose was just like a demon as she turned a ghostly figure. The golden scale guards' eyes were dazzled as they lost all trace of Huang Yueli's trail. Following that, they felt an irresistible, huge force coming from their backs, and before they could react, they had already been struck flying out. Bam! 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 The sound of impact was continuously heard. The golden scale guards who were thought to be unexcelled were all flying out within a blink of an eye, and all of them were facing down as their foreheads crashed heavily onto the ground, blood spilling out. Not long after, no one was left standing in the entire room, except for Huang Yueli. Li Shuer was completely stunned by this scenario, as she turned wide-eyed, as though she had seen a ghost. Huang Yueli had finished handling everyone as she slowly turned and walked over. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli stood up and clapped her hands, calling out, "Men, why isn't there anyone around at all?" Most of the valiant martial manners guards and servants were injured by the men whom were brought over by the seventh princess, and they were blocked at the entrance, so they could only watch from afar. They had initially thought Huang Yueli would definitely come to a dead end this time, but who knew that even under the attack of so many golden scale guards, Huang Yueli easily ironed out the difficulties. Looking at the groaning golden scale guards laying all over the ground, everyone's respect towards Huang Yueli rose to newer heights. Upon hearing her summon, all the servants dragged their injured bodies, limped and hobbled over to show themselves in front of their third Mississippi. To be able to follow such a strong master, in future, they would be able to bask in envy. "Third Miss, what commands do you have?" "This servant will handle it properly." "This servant can also do the same." please tell us your commands, third miss. Everyone crowded over, all talking together to promote their own services. Huang Yuli nodded and pointed to two people. You, and you, come over here. She passed the bottle of medication in her hands to them and commanded, the both of you bring along some men and feed the medication to the guards that the seventh princess had brought over. One person shall take one pill. After ensuring that they have taken the pill, drag all of them and the seventh princess out, and using a carriage, send them back to the palace. Do you hear me clearly? Yes, loud and clear. Third miss, please rest assured. I guarantee that I will complete this task. Both of them accepted, and very quickly they organized the team to carry out their task. Those guards who were injured by Huang Yuli basically had fractures everywhere and were unable to get up on their own. Even their meridians were damaged, so they didn't have any ability to resist. The few people followed Huang Yuli's instructions and first fed them with the pill before dragging them out one by one. Finally, there was only the seventh princess left in the study room who had yet to be dragged out. The few of them returned to the entrance of the study room and looked inside while asking for further instructions. Third miss, this. Seventh princess to that he hemmed and hawed, feeling embarrassed to say out the words, dragged the seventh princess out. After all, she was a respectable royal princess. Under the eyes of those born as slaves, her existence was extremely valuable. Just the thought of being rough with her made many feel jittery in their hearts. Huang Yuli, however, did not have any of these misgivings. She waved her hand and replied, "That's right, drag her away too." If you don't hurry, the medication in the princess's body might just start to take effect now. Just at the same moment, Li Shuer already could feel the strange feeling spreading within her body. She only felt the temperature in her body raising higher and higher, her skin becoming more sensitive and itchy, and her face gradually flushing red. It was as if a scorching heat from within was spreading from her heart all the way to all her four limbs. She bit her lips, tried hard to suppress the uncomforting feeling in her body, and stared at Huang Yuli furiously. "What on earth did you feed me? What was that thing?" Huang Yuli's brows raised as she replied, "Actually, you've already guessed it, isn't it? It's exactly what you think it is." "What? Why, what did you say? How do you know what I'm thinking?" "Impossible. You dare to feed me that type of medication?" "Take what kind of medication?" Huang Yuli asked laughingly. Li Shuer's eyes rimmed red, but she was not able to voice out a single word. Huang Yuli lowered her head and whispered by the side of her ear with a laugh. Your guess is right. What I fed you is indeed the pill that will bring a person to heat, and your guards had all taken the same pill. You can also listen on." Li Shuer was wide-eyed as her face drained cleanly of all traces of blood, even though she had already guessed it. But hearing the words, estrus pill, coming out clearly from Huang Yuli's mouth, she was still unable to believe it. Following that, a deep fear arose from the bottom of her heart. Huang Yuli actually dared to do this. And the scariest part was not only did she feed her this medication, she also fed this same medication to so many guards. And she's going to place her in the same carriage to be sent back to the palace. This. Won't she be able to protect her chastity? A mouthful of blood rushed up from Li Shuer's chest, and unable to suppress it further, she spat it out. "Byrooli, you dare to do such an outrageous act. If you dare to ruin my innocence, even if I become a ghost, I will not forgive you." Li Shuer was conceited over her outstanding status and innate skill, and had always wanted to get acquainted to several reputable direct descendants disciples in Sky Cloud City. Although the amount of suitors she had were plentiful, but if she were to lose her chastity, and if anyone found out about it, then her hopes of marrying into any powerful or reputable aristocrats would be dashed. Huang Yuli laughingly replied, "Seventh princess, what are you saying? You tried to interrupt my advancement because you wanted my life. I only want your chastity. So, comparing the two, I'm much kinder than you." Li Shuer's eyes almost shot out streaks of fire. Under her ashamed and resentful glare, Huang Yuli chortled gleefully as she slowly opened her mouth to add on, "What's more, Don't say that I didn't give you any chances. The speed of the medication that I had fed you with doesn't take effect immediately. So to say, if the speed of the carriage is fast enough, perhaps all of you might not even advance to the last step and reach the palace in time. If you were to slowly drag on her, chirping non-stop, then perhaps in the middle of the journey, the effect would have taken place. By then, with so many men and only you, if the emperor were to see this scenario, I wonder if he will die from an excess of anger on the spot. When Li Shuer heard this depiction, she almost fainted. No wonder Huang Yueli wanted to stuff her up the carriage and transport her back to the palace. If such a scandal were to be seen by so many people at the palace doors, and if her imperial father and empress were to see this, she wouldn't need to live in this lifetime. Li Shuer's eyes were filled with poisonous grudges as she stared at Huang Yueli. You're such an evil and malicious lunatic. You will die a horrible death. Huang Yueli sneered coldly. That's interesting. When you tried to kill me, why didn't you feel that you're evil and malicious? And now you're trying to act like a pure white lotus. My advice to you is if you dare to come out to mess, there's always a price to pay. Today is your time to slowly pay back your debts. She waved her hand and ordered her men to drag Li Shuer away. Li Shuer kept struggling and pedaled her feet, expressing her unwillingness to get on the carriage. Huang Yueli spoke in a chilling voice. If Seventh Princess is not willing to get on the carriage, don't force her to, otherwise she will say we did not treat her with respect. Just wait a little while more. Perhaps after a while more, the medication effects completely take effect on those guards in the carriage. Li Shuer froze when she heard such words. After a long time, her pale lips trembled. Biroli, I want. She shut her eyes and clenched her teeth, and using a small voice like a mosquito, she buzzed, I want to get up the carriage. Huang Yueli smiled lightly. What do you want? You're speaking so softly, my hearing isn't that good, so I can't hear you. You can also listen on. Li Shuer was embarrassed to the extreme, but facing a motionless Huang Yueli, she had no choice but to raise the volume of her voice and repeated what she said earlier. Huang Yueli gave a smile, which didn't look like a smile. You really deserve to be called the Seventh Princess. Your hobby is really special. You already know that this carriage has many men who had taken thee and still want me to quickly let you get on the carriage. Aren't you being a little too unconstrained? If others were to know about it, the entire South Yu Kingdom's royal family's face will be thrown away by you. Li Shuer's emotions were mixed in between embarrassed and anger, and that type of despondent feeling was simply indescribable. It was obviously Huang Yueli who forced her to say these kind of words and forced her up the carriage. But unexpectedly, when the words reached Huang Yueli's mouth, it became totally twisted and had the opposite meaning. If people heard what Huang Yueli said, then they would most probably think that she was a shameless, immoral woman. It had been such a simple thing, to teach Huang Yueli a lesson on behalf of her brother and her best friend, but Li Shuer had never dreamt that the result would end up in her losing so badly, to the extent of her reputation being shred to pieces. She recalled that before she came over, by Ruo, she constantly reminded her, don't even look down on this third sister of mine. Ever since she committed suicide the last time, she seemed to have changed into a different person. Her thoughts are deep and frightening. If you were to belittle her, then you'd fall into her trap easily. Li Shuer had casually acknowledged it earlier but didn't take it to heart. But now, she really regret her actions for not taking heed. Alas, it was all too late now. Huang Yueli had personally sealed her meridians and got her men to carry her onto the carriage. In front of the carriage was a coachman. When Li Shuer got up the carriage, the coachman followed Huang Yueli's instructions and, striking the horsewhip, proceeded towards the direction of the palace. Huang Yueli wanted to join in the fun and exhibited her footworks, following behind the carriage at a casual speed. Not long after the carriage had started on its journey, heavy panting and moaning can be heard from within. Huang Yueli raised her eyebrow and turned her head towards the little bird sapling resting on her shoulder. Wang Kai, make a guess. Have they started doing the deed already? The little phoenix covered its eyes, but since it wasn't covered totally from the chinks of the feathers, without even blinking, His large, watery eyes could be seen staring at the carriage's direction, filled with curiosity. Little Phoenix kept stealing peeks, and at the same time replied, "Female devil, what deed are you talking about? That deed doesn't mean. This little lord is such a pure and cute divine magical beast. Don't you dare to use your evil thoughts to contaminate me." The corners of Huang Yueli's mouth twitched. This wimpy brat, when he was saying such things, could his eyes first stop to steal glances? Huang Yueli glimpsed at him and intentionally said, "See that little hole at the back of the carriage's window? Shall I help to stuff you inside so that you can go in and take a look?" Chirp, 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 chirp. Yes, yes. Little Phoenix excitedly flapped its wing and fluttered. But after the excitement, when he saw the ridicule in Huang Yueli's eyes, he immediately hung its head down weakly. Cough, cough. Why would this little lord want to do such a thing? Female devil, don't be shameless and try to throw such an innocent person like me into that place. You're so bad. Even Huang Yueli was defeated utterly by this shameless little thing and remained wordless for a short period of time. By now, the carriage had turned into another street. You can also listen on. The entire journey from Valiant Marshall Manor to the Royal Palace would pass through several busiest streets in the city, and these streets were mainly for commercial use, so traffic was extremely busy and pedestrians were closely woven. When the carriage had arrived at these areas, it could not maintain the previous speed to go as fast as possible, so it could only reduce its speed as it moved slowly, moving and halting every few seconds. However, the minute the carriage decreased its speed, the sound from within the carriage could be heard visible. In. Ah, ah. The slight moaning could be heard indistinctly. The pedestrians on the streets were plentiful, and quite a number of them had already noticed the unusual situation in that carriage. They ambiguously turned their heads to look, and following that, discussions in a lowered tone could be heard. Look at that carriage. Those sounds earlier, did it come from that carriage? That's right, it's this carriage. I've heard sounds coming from it for quite a while. Oh my, aren't the people inside too thirsty? So do such an act in the middle of the day at such a busy place. A bystander gave a lewd smile. You're all inexperienced. If I were to say, there are several men inside and only one woman. TSK, such heavy taste. What? How can such a thing happen? Isn't that woman being forced to do such a thing? We have to report to the authorities. What's the hurry? The lewd man smiled wretchedly. From the sound of this, it seems that the woman is enjoying herself. We can't be sure that she's not a willing party. A stir started to arouse. Little Phoenix turned his head towards Huang Yueli and asked, "Wasai, if that what princess's reputation has gone down in the mud? If she were to hear these, won't she die of anger?" The corners of Huang Yueli's lips curled upwards. Don't worry, she heard it loud and clear. Regarding this, Huang Yueli was very sure, because the medication that she had given would not make the party lost their rationale. Instead, they remained clear-headed, but they were unable to control their actions and feelings. So the effect of this medication was extremely useful for tormenting others. Although the levels of the voices of those pedestrians were intentionally lowered, but Li Shui'er was after all a second-degree realm practitioner. Her senses were much higher than ordinary people by several folds, so the volume of these voices were absolutely loud and clear to her. The carriage continued on its journey, although the speed was slow, but it eventually passed by this street. Just up in the front was the gate to the royal palace. Just a distance before the carriage reached the main gate, it was stopped. The golden scale guards held in their hands long spears and blocked the way in front of the carriage. Who was inside? In front of the royal palace. Why aren't you coming down to report who you are? Although the carriage had stopped, but still no one stepped down. The coachman stopped the carriage, and, as though he had done something guilty, he sped away immediately. The golden scale guards had not imagined that he would run away, so naturally they didn't thought of stopping him. It was only after he had ran away did the few guards looked at one another in dismay, unclear of the current situation. What's the situation now? Why did he run away? Why aren't the people inside getting down from the carriage? Don't bother so much. Go over and take a look. The golden scale guards walked towards the carriage, and just a distance away, they heard noises of moaning and panting, and a powerless woman's voice from the carriage. "Go away. Don't do this." The few of them grew wide-eyed as they all recovered their senses at the same time. "Cow! This carriage! Are they having... heavens! Aren't they too shameless? To do such a thing is already too indecent. To think that they actually stopped the carriage in front of the royal palace gate? Isn't this a provocation to the emperor?" You can also listen on. Yes, to scorn the emperor. The punishment is extermination of the entire family clan. Quickly drag them down and see who could it be who is so utterly shameless. That's right, drag them off the carriage. Although the golden-scaled guards' expressions depicted a righteous indignation, but in their hearts, they were extremely excited. Such a heavy-tasted living erotic chamber was not seen commonly. Now with such an opportunity, won't they be in a hurry to see it for their eyes, otherwise they'd lost out on it? What's more, if luck is on their side, perhaps they might be able to get a share. Just thinking about this, the golden-scaled guards ran to outbid each other towards the carriage, all eager to see what kind of sexual scenario had happened. When the curtain on the carriage had been pulled open, the man closest to the outside was whisked out immediately. Quickly take a look. What the... had this guy been taking aphrodisiac? Look at how excited he is. Even after we have discovered their act, not only did he draw back, he's still fondling their teeth. All right, what's there to see about, men? I want to see the woman inside. His colleague quickly interrupted him. The others concurred. That's right. Let's see how the shameless woman looks like. Quick, move your asses. Lee Schwerer was squashed right on the inside, and on her were many men fondling here and there. Adding on to the fact that her arm was broken, it was very difficult for her to struggle. Even using the profound energy in her body, she was able to utilize a bit of her profound skill to protect herself and had yet to proceed to the last step, but the clothes on her had totally been stripped off in the process of fondling. Heavens know how much advantage she had been taken off. Had this scenario had been seen from outsiders, she could really kill herself. She hurriedly shouted, Don't come nearer. All of you scram." However, the golden-scaled guards couldn't recognize her at all and roared with laughter. Hear this woman, when she's in the act, she didn't feel shameless at all. Now that she's discovered, she's asking us to scram? That's right. Obviously a shameless bitch, still pretending to be noble. You've already been played with so many men, just letting us take a few looks. You should consider it as your fortune. As their words become more and more uncouth, Lee Schwerer's tears started flowing. Yet she was unable to rebuta. If she were to claim she was the seventh princess, won't she lost even more face? But if she didn't lay claim to her status and were dragged out naked, that alone would be enough for her to kill herself by banging the wall. Just as she was stuck in a dilemma, a golden-scaled guard who lagged behind lowered his head and took a careful look at the first man who was being dragged down the carriage. Suddenly, he shouted in surprise, "Weird, this man looks a little familiar." "Familiar? What are you saying? Stop disturbing. Let's drag that woman out." This guard started to become anxious and said, "He really looks familiar. Wait, I recall now. Isn't this Lee C from the 3rd Squadron? Why is he here?" Hearing that, someone turned back and took a few more glances, then he froze. "That's right, I recall now. He seemed to have gone out with the 7th princess to capture someone. How did he get into such a situation now?" The golden-scaled guards immediately felt something was amiss and hurriedly took action and whisked every single person out. Every single person gave them a big shock, because all the men here were all their colleagues, members of the golden-scaled guards. You can also listen on. The more the golden-scaled guards saw, the more terrified they became. Very soon, all the men in the carriage were pulled down, leaving only Lee Schwerer in the carriage alone. All the golden-scaled guards who blustered around earlier all fell silent, and no one dared to enter to capture the woman. The reason was because a shocking guess arose within their hearts. The shameless woman inside couldn't be the 7th princess, right? This guess was not unreasonable, because all the guards who had been dragged down earlier were all, without exception, those who had been deployed to help 7th Princess with some matters today. In the end, all of them had appeared in the carriage, except for the 7th Princess, whose whereabouts were unknown. Without a need to think further, the woman in the carriage had a 90% chance that it was her. But how could this be? 7th Princess usually looked natural and unrestrained, unless she was such a shameless and wanton woman deep down in her bones. She had dared to commit such audacity within the city. The Golden Scale Guards looked at each other in dismay, not knowing what to do next. Huang Yule hid under a big tree at a distance not far away. When she saw this scenario, her mouth twitched disdainfully. These Golden Scale Guards, normally they're so haughty and overbearing. Why did they become so terrified at this moment? Such a huge letdown. Let me give them a hand. She hooked a small stone under the tree and kicked it. Along the direction of the wind, the stone flew towards the carriage and happened to fall in between the wheel. With a thump, the carriage lost its balance instantly and fell flat towards the direction of the royal palace. As for Li Shuer, who curled up in the carriage, giving a screech, she rolled out from the carriage and rolled for quite a distance before falling right in front of the Golden Scale Guards. The Golden Scale Guards looked carefully, and all were shocked out of their lives. The woman, in front of their eyes, was totally naked. Her figure was shapely, giving rise to wild and fanciful thoughts. Even though the Golden Scaled Guards knew she could possibly be the 7th Princess, but they were unable to control their line of visions and ogled several glances at her. Those lewd glances almost drove Li Shuer to death. The Golden Scaled Guard's vision fell onto her face, and at this moment, everyone was stunned. 7th Princess, Li Shuer, was an outstanding beauty, but this woman in front of their eyes had her face filled with bumpy bruises. Her face was swollen like a pig head. Was she really the 7th Princess? Li Shuer screeched. What are you looking at? Do you believe that this princess will gorge out your eyes? Quickly remove your clothes and give it to me. This time, her voice was loud and clear and allowed the Golden Scaled Guard to confirm that this indeed was the 7th Princess. One of them hurriedly removed his outer jacket and threw it towards Li Shuer. The rest of them surrounded her, back-facing in a circle to block out the views from the other people so that she could put on the clothes in the human circle. There were some who observed the surroundings and immediately went to clear the scene and chase away those bystanders who were there to watch the bustling scene. Alas, these series of actions came too late, because around the doors of the palace, there were several ministers and influential officials moving around. They had already seen this scenario with their own eyes and were gesticulating. Even guessed that the naked woman who had just rolled out from the carriage was the emperor's beloved 7th Princess. Some palace maids and eunuchs happened to pass by this route, and when they saw such a scenario, they hurriedly entered the palace to report to the emperor. Not long after, the palace door opened and the emperor and empress personally rushed over. You can also listen on. At this moment, Li Shuer had yet to put on the clothes properly, due to the fact that both her hands could not move and she could not possibly ask the Golden Scaled Guards to put on for her, so she could only slowly nudge herself, attempting to shift the clothes onto her body. But this action proved to be too difficult, as it would, time to time, hurt her hand, causing waves of extreme pain. Besides that, the effect of the estrus pill had not fully subsided as heat waves continued to rise, causing her to give out several moaning sounds. The surrounding Golden Scaled Guards tried hard to endure. If they had not known that the woman behind was a golden-branched jade leaf person whom they could not afford to provoke, they would have lost it and made advances towards her long ago. When the emperor and empress arrived at the scenario, what they saw was this. Li Shuer was scantily dressed, stooping on the ground and constantly making groaning sounds. Her face was filled with wounds, and it was difficult to make out her original looks. Empress gave a screech and quickly walked over. When she saw the birthmark on Li Shuer's upper shoulder, she momentarily cried out, "Shuer, it's really Shuer. How did you become like this? What happened?" "My Shuer, mother." Li Shuer saw the empress, and immediately all the grievances flowed upwards as her tears started to flow, unable to stop. Both mother and daughter started crying bitterly. However, in the eyes of the emperor, this scenario was far from touching. He only felt a deep sense of shame and a stomach full of fury. Enough, the both of you still dare to cry. The emperor howled angrily and strode over. Li Shueter seldom heard the emperor giving out such a fierce and stern tone and was shocked beyond words momentarily. Her tears stopped flowing as she mumbled, "Imperial father." However, before she could give an explanation, a piak slap fiercely landed on her face. "You still know you have an imperial father like me. How dare you openly do such obscurity with so many guards in front of the palace doors? What's more, you openly roamed the streets in the city. The entire South Yu Kingdom's face had been thrown by you. How could I have such an indecent and immoral daughter like you?" Li Shue'er was struck dumb. Due to her outstanding innate gift and her beauty, she had always been the apple of the emperor's eyes and had been pampered since young. She had never thought that one day she would be slapped by her imperial father. However, before she could react, the emperor had already showered down hurls of abuse on her. That tone was obviously filled with disappointment to the extreme. Imperial father, listen to your daughter's explanation." The emperor gnashed his teeth as he hissed, "I don't want to hear your explanation. You already did such a shameful thing. What excuse do you have?" Li Shue'er is now stripped of her princess status and demoted to a commoner. Men, capture her and don't let her step out of the royal palace. When the empress heard these, she shuddered with cold sweat and rushed over to plead for mercy. "Your Majesty, your concubine Shue'er is not someone who doesn't know her morals. She must not have done this intentionally. Please have mercy, your Majesty." When the emperor heard these words, instead of calming down, his fury raged even further. Unintentional, and she had already threw all the royal family's face away. If it was intentionally, wouldn't she already have forgotten about the entire South Yu Kingdom? If you dare to add on one more word, just wait for the imperial edict to be deposed. The emperor was extremely enraged. A legitimate princess hang out with so many guards in a carriage. What an atrocious gossip was this? You can also listen on. If this gossip was really leaked out, the entire South Yu Kingdom would thoroughly be reduced to other countries' laughingstock. No matter how much the emperor had usually pampered this daughter, now that such a matter had happened, he was completely unable to withstand this fact. From he and other people's point of view, Li Shue'er's power was a defensive profound realm 3rd level, and she also held a noble status of a princess. If this was something that she wasn't willing to, who would be able to force her to do so? At this moment, the emperor felt strongly that she had lost her sense of honor and shame. Li Shue'er was stunned from the slap, and when she finally found her senses, she immediately cried bitterly to defend herself. "Imperial father, please listen to your daughter's explanation. This is really something that I didn't do willingly. Someone is out to harm me. It's by Rooli from Valiant Martial Manor." When the emperor heard these words, instead of believing her, his fury amplified. "Enough! There's so many people out there, but you had to pick on by Rooli? Who doesn't know that she's just a chi profound realm 9 level, whereas you were a defensive profound realm practitioner? Yet you brought along so many guards. What were you trying to do? Can she outsmart you? I know that your royal brother's marriage arrangement was rejected by her, and he was also injured by Moing. So, harboring this hatred in mind, you also wanted to take revenge on his behalf. But to speak without thinking, isn't your inclination just too evil?" The emperor just couldn't bring himself to believe her explanation. Ever since the last Peach Blossom banquet, he found out that Bairoli had been bullied since young by the Marquis Lady and insulted by Bairua Chi. He had always felt that he'd done an injustice towards Bai Lu Feng, and that he had owed her too much. Moreover, ever since the Crown Prince was injured, he had always clamored about taking revenge on Li Moing and Huang Yueli, so the emperor had already kept vigilant on this. He had never expected that Li Shue'er would go find trouble with Huang Yueli the minute she returned. Was it the motive abundantly clear? Now, Li Shue'er even claimed that Huang Yueli had set her and the guards up. Li Moing was not around. As a first-degree realm practitioner, how was she able to deal with so many golden-scaled guards? How would the Emperor ever think that Huang Yueli's potential had such a shocking breakthrough? Li Shui'er was unable to find a convincing explanation to defend herself. She was unable to take it any longer, had a blackout, and fainted on the spot. At a distance not far away, under a big tree, Huang Yueli secretly stretched her arms and spoke in a springy tone. "All right, the show is over. Let's get on our way now." Little Phoenix reluctantly tugged at her collar. Chirp, 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 chirping nonstop. "Female devil, what's the hurry? Until now, I have yet to see what that lady in nude looks like. Let me watch a little long, just a little longer. Otherwise, let's move away slightly further to take a clear look." Ouch! Huang Yueli couldn't stand it any further as she gave him a huge bump on the top of his head. "You brat, going astray at such a young age. Is that something that you should be looking at?" Woo-woo! Little Phoenix shrunk his head back, not daring to speak his mind. However, in his heart, he kept thinking that this female devil had thought of such a sinister and vicious plot, but he just wanted to take another look and suffer domestic violence from her. This was practically double standard at its best. Humph! The next time she and Li Moying got intimate, he must open his eyes wide and look to his content. Huang Yueli swept a glance at him. Seeing that he leaned his head back, she guessed what was on his mind. She carried the little Phoenix and placed him back on her shoulder. "All right, stop wasting time. We still have pressing matters to see to." Chirp, chirp. Pressing matters? Yes. Huang Yueli nodded. Brother Mo had gone to the Thousand Treasure Pavilion since morning and have yet to return. It's simply abnormal for someone like him. Something must have delayed him from coming back, or there could be an accident or something like that. Otherwise, he won't act in this way. Let's hurry over and take a look. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli brought along the little Phoenix and went straight to Thousand Treasure Pavilion. Thousand Treasure Pavilion's door was wide open, but there weren't any customers. Huang Yueli strode in with big steps and saw the entire lobby in huge mess. All the counters had been pushed over and various medicinal ingredients were scattered on the ground. Some locked cabinets were also smashed open. Signs of a fight were visibly shown on the ground. Besides that, all the employees of the Thousand Treasure Pavilion were spotted having a black eye, as though they had just been attacked by someone. Yet in between these people, there wasn't any sign of MOE or Manager Sunday. Huang Yueli frowned as she grabbed an employee and asked, "Where's Manager's son? How about MOE? Where are they gone to?" The employee was holding on to his swollen face while groaning in pain, but as he lifted his head, a delicate and attractive face came into his sight. A hint of joy shone in his eyes. He had immediately recognized that she was the valiant Marshal Manor's third miss and was also their lady boss. Third miss, you're here. That's great, we're saved. Manager's son is inside, calculating what we have left in our reserve. The Crown Prince had led his men here, looting and snatching items in our shop, causing us to suffer from huge losses. Third miss, you're looking for him? Need your humble servant to ask Manager's son out? Huang Yueli shook her head and replied, "Never mind. Let him slowly calculate the damages. How about MOE? The employee was dumbfounded for a moment before he suddenly realized. "You're referring to the tall and incredible expert? He's simply too powerful. Earlier, when the few of us were almost beaten to death by the Golden Scale Guards, but when Sir Mo rushed here, he easily took care of all of them. Even the Crown Prince was not able to take even one strike from him." Huang Yueli was totally not surprised by his words. Mo was a 5th-degree realm practitioner, higher than Crown Prince, and the rest by a total of 3 realms. To say that he swept all obstacles away at one go was not an exaggeration. Even one finger of his could squash them all. Where did he go to after he defeated the Crown Prince? The employee replied, "This, your humble servant, is not sure. But when the Crown Prince plundered a lot of valuable items from our shop, and when he escaped, he brought it all along." Sir Mo seemed very angry, and from the looks of it, it was possible that he had chased after the Crown Prince to get the valuables back. Huang Yueli frowned, seemingly unable to understanding his motive. Even if Mo were to chase after the Crown Prince, but in order to get the items back, it shouldn't be something effortless, so why would he waste so much time? Huang Yueli found another employee, and his answer was similar to the first. She hesitated for a moment and decided to proceed outside to take a look. Luckily, the Crown Prince had let a large group of people running wildly on the streets. That scenario had left quite a deep impression on others. Huang Yueli inquired someone by the roadside, and very quickly, she located the route which the Crown Prince had escaped in. She followed the pathway, but when she saw the destination, she was slightly surprised as she frowned. The place that they had gone to was actually the royal treasury. She had been to this royal treasure previously. The last time was to obtain the flame cloud pearl from the treasury, so that she could advance in her level. At that time, she had been pursued by the imperial tutor for several miles, escaping all the way to the royal palace before she managed to shake him off. To think that the Crown Prince had brought his men to escape to this place. Could it be that he had also followed them to this place? As suspicion started to form in Huang Yueli's mind, her speed started to decrease by quite a bit. You can also listen on. From her previous experience, Huang Yueli was very sure that the royal treasury was filled with golden scale guards and other experts and would be heavily guarded. It would be best to proceed carefully if she didn't want to make a huge commotion and got besieged. Huang Yueli followed the previous pathway that she had taken before and found the air vent that she had entered the previous time. She hid behind the opening and secretly spied on the situation, following which she raised her brow in surprise. Originally, there were 2 guards keeping watch under the air vent, and she was considering on how she could knock them unconscious without making a commotion. Who would know that today there wasn't anyone at all? Although surprised, she didn't hesitate, and with the tip of her toes, she leapt upwards onto the ledge of the wall and made her way into the little ventilator hole. She did not meet with any obstructions throughout the entire process and successfully infiltrated into the intersection. "Stop him, quick, stop him!" Huang Yueli had just jumped down from the wall when she heard a gust of flustered and exasperated yelling, as well as several mechanisms being activated. She got a shock as she thought she had fallen into some sort of trap. Her eyes widened after observing closely. The result was, what the? He is really here. He was indeed trapped within the royal treasury, and he had to face being besieged by several experts alone, and among those included the imperial tutor and another 4th-degree realm practitioner who had always been guarding the royal treasury. Besides them, there were several golden scale guards commanders who were currently in the 3rd-degree realm. If it was purely based on battle power alone, even though the imperial tutor and the rest had an advantage in terms of manpower, but with that alone to defeat who was both an experienced and skilled 5th-degree realm expert, seemed like an impossible task. However, they still had the upper hand. In the royal treasury, various mechanisms were installed to protect the treasures, and it was important to take precaution on every single step. Otherwise, it might end up in fatal disaster. He was not familiar to these mechanisms, and he knew nothing about the topography of the royal treasury. On one end, the imperial tutor and others were attacking him with all their might, while on the other hand, they were activating the mechanisms in the royal treasury. This had caused various obstacles to although MOE's power was much stronger than them on an entire level, but the mechanisms were extremely powerful and was caught unprepared several times. When this had dragged on, he gradually found it hard to deal with and subsequently fell into a disadvantage. The imperial tutor's face expressed boundless pleasure. "Everyone hold on. This deceitful thief is not going to hold on much longer. Everyone listen to my commands. Let's quickly take him down and hand him over to the Crown Prince. Crown Prince will definitely reward you handsomely." All those present were under the Crown Prince's personal doctrine, hence, all of them had the same thoughts in mind and hastened the rhythm of their attacks. Huang Yueli blinked her eyes, and after observing for a short while, she came to an understanding. It looked like while the Crown Prince was escaping, he had brought along the treasures and lured MOE to the inside of the royal treasury. On one hand, it was to borrow the powers of the mechanisms and guards to capture MOE, while on the other hand, there was a malicious plot brewing. MOE was Li Moying's bodyguard, and if he were caught intruding into the royal treasury with the intention to steal, it would definitely affect Li Moying's reputation. In this way, Crown Prince could successfully discredit Li Moying and smear his reputation, while regaining fame for himself. Besides that, if Crown Prince were to take Moe away from her, Li Shuer would be able to grab this opportunity to find trouble with Huang Yueli at the Valiant Martial Manor. You can also listen on. In the eyes of the Crown Prince and Seventh Princess, although Huang Yueli had a good innate skill, but her age was just too young and her cultivation was only at the first-degree realm. If it hadn't been for Li Moying, she was not even be fit to be an opponent for any one of them. As long as they removed the guard that Li Moying had left by her side, she would become a helpless little sheep waiting for slaughter. They had not preempted that Huang Yueli was actually able to use her own power to take care of Li Shuer and those men whom she had brought along, and even gave them a good thrashing. Now, she had even rushed to the royal treasury in time. With an unexpected variable like her, the plan that Crown Prince had plotted to capture Moe alive was not possible to materialize. This was because, in a place filled with mechanisms, was exactly Huang Yueli's home field. Even if the Crown Prince's mechanisms were to be counted fully, to pick such a location was akin to using a stone and crush his own feet. In the middle of the treasury, Moe's disadvantage was becoming more and more obvious. On seeing that his actions were gradually becoming slower, the Imperial Tutor's wrinkle-ridden face let out a smile as he shouted, "Quick! Surround him, everyone! Let's all!" Before he could finish his words, they heard a dull noise reverberating from the treasury. Imperial Tutor scowled as he shouted, "Didn't I say this already? Don't activate the mechanisms without my orders, have you all heard?" This, as he was speaking, his eyes suddenly grew wider as his entire face expressed shock. A huge rumble sound blared, and unknowingly the largest mechanism in the royal treasury was activated as huge rocks dropped down from their head as though it was hailstone. The only difference was the rocks were larger than the hailstones and had a diameter of at least 1 meter. If one were to be struck by it, one would definitely end up wounded or dead. Imperial Tutor hastily avoided it, as his heart was flustered by a peal of astonishment and panic. The reason was because the only way to activate this largest mechanism was only known to him and the other fourth-degree realm expert, who was responsible for guarding the royal treasury. But now that both of them were here, who was it that had activated the mechanism? Unless there was a traitor within the royal treasury who had secretly learnt how to activate the mechanism. But wasn't this just impossible? In order to activate such a powerfully large mechanism, it would require a lot of strength, and without the power of the fourth-degree realm practitioner, even if one knew the method, one would not have enough strength to activate it. But what the Imperial Tutor didn't know was to use brute force to activate the mechanism was actually the last resort. This method would only be used by those who had no idea whatsoever about mechanisms and had no choice but to choose such a stupid method. However, to an armament master like Huang Yueli, to activate such a low-level mechanism was a simple task to undertake. Not only did she activate the large hailstone mechanism, she also made some minor adjustments to the mechanism itself. This resulted in the descent of hailstones dropping more on the Imperial Tutor and others' heads, concentrated to the extent of impossibility. As for Moe's side, there were only a few pieces of hailstone, and he just had to slightly adjust his position and would be able to avoid it easily. A glint of surprise flashed past Moe's eyes, as he had never expected that the situation would take such a huge, unexpected turn. Just as he realized that he was about to be defeated, and since he didn't want to fall into the evil claws of the Imperial Tutor to become a tool against his master, he had already made the worst decision of perishing together with them. Who knew that, just as he was about to find the best opportunity to strike, this unexpected change happened. You can also listen on. Since the current situation was advantageous to him, with Moe's abundant experience in battle, he naturally would not miss such a wonderful opportunity. He immediately worked up his cultivation method, and displaying his profound skill, The flexible sword in his hands waltzed out streams of blinding lightning-like sword glimmer. His profound energy was of spectacular significance, as his attacks were directed towards the Imperial Tutor and the others. Imperial Tutor and the rest were using all their might to avoid the densely falling hailstones, and next up was a series of full-strength attacks from a 5th-degree Rel practitioner. What was more fraudulent was they would also suffer sneak attacks from Huang Yueli time. Under 3 simultaneous avenues, they were unable to ward blows. Very soon, all of their meridians on their hands and feet were severed by MOE, and they fell on the floor, unable to get up. And just at the instant that they had fallen, the hailstones that had continuously been dropping on their heads suddenly stopped. Upon seeing this situation, the heartbeats of the Imperial Tutor and others almost came to a halt. Did it need to be so deceptive? Who among them didn't grew eyes and switched on a mechanism? Why was it such a coincidence? And it had to stop right now. If it had stopped a quarter of an hour earlier, they would not have been checkmated one after one. At the same time, their hearts were annoyed beyond words. If they had known earlier and just persevered just a little longer, if they could persevere just a quarter of an hour more, to avoid a few more strikes and the hailstones would have stopped. By then, they would be able to turn defeat into victory. Sigh, why didn't they just persevere just a little more earlier? However, what they didn't know was the stopping of the hailstones was actually controlled by Huang Yueli in the background, and no matter how long more they had persevered, as long as they did not fall, the falling hailstones would naturally not stop. After MOE had defeated all the enemies, he hurriedly turned around to search for the person who had been aiding him in secret. Huang Yueli slowly walked out from a corner, bearing a faint smile on her face. "Third miss, it's you." MOE hastily bowed. Imperial Tutor's eyes super wide as he stared daggers at her. By Roli? Huang Yueli nodded towards MOE to acknowledge his greeting and turned her gaze towards the Imperial Tutor as her lips surfaced a frosty smile. "Imperial Tutor, how have you been? Ever since we last met at the Peach Blossom Banquet, I thought that we would never cross paths ever again. After all, I am a 6th-grade talent, and you are just a passé old man who's almost dying, so we're not on the same route. God knows, we're played around by the will of heavens that we have crossed paths so soon again, so this is quite a surprise." Imperial Tutor was choked by her words that his entire face turned red with fury and embarrassment. This wretched lass. Every single time she opened her mouth, it would spill out words which would infuriate one to spit blood out. And to make it worse, one was not able to rebut whatever she had said. The reason was because every word she had said was the truth, and only because it was the truth, it was unbearable, as though stepping down hard on others' open wounds. Saying that he was a passé old man, and they were not on the same route. Although the words were unpleasant to hear, but the Imperial Tutor had indeed, during recent times, felt that he would not be able to live much longer. As for Huang Yueli, she had just revealed her outstanding talent. Like the sun in midday, sooner or later she would gradually ascend to become a shining star. They were indeed incomparable. The Imperial Tutor gasped a couple of breaths before he forcefully opened his mouth. "You wretched lass who doesn't know how to show your respects to your seniors. I am the Imperial Tutor, and even the Emperor have to show respect to me. What's more, when your father was still in the South Kingdom, he would greet me as a senior. Is this how you talk to me? You can also listen on." The sides of Huang Yueli's mouth curled upwards slightly as her eyes flashed obvious signs of ridicule. "My father greeted you as a senior was to respect your age, thinking that you are an elderly worth respecting. My father had always been an upright person, but how would we ever expect that in this whole wide world there's such a person who isn't worthy of respect? As for me," she paused momentarily, and under the embittered gaze of the Imperial Tutor, she unhurriedly opened her mouth. "You're just my guard's defeated opponent and prisoner. Frankly speaking, you're worse than the servants under me, so why should I bother to show respect to you? Have I got nothing better to do?" The Imperial Tutor almost fainted when he heard these words. This wretched lass actually compared him with the servants. He was a powerful fourth-degree realm practitioner, and even the emperor had to treat him with respect as his status was utmost valuable. "You're good, Byrooli. With such arrogance, sooner or later you will suffer retribution, and it will be soon. Let me tell you, Seventh Princess is already back in the kingdom, and she's not an ordinary girl. If you were to fall into the hands of the Seventh Princess..." The imperial tutor had originally wanted to scare her, but in the middle of speaking, he suddenly stopped. He suddenly remembered that he had been sent to the royal treasury to hold back Immerse, so that it would be more convenient for Seventh Princess to deal with Huang Yueli. But why was Huang Yueli able to appear here now? Shouldn't she still be at the Valiant Martial Manor, being hung up to be tortured by the Seventh Princess and thrown into the darkest and dirtiest water prison? Why did she appear in the royal treasury? And her dressing looked tidy, and her complexion was rosy, looking much prettier than before. Her condition couldn't be better. In what way did she look like she was being given corrective punishment? Could it be that this wretched lass had heard news of the Seventh Princess going over to find trouble with her, so she had ran away? Or had something happened to the Seventh Princess, made adjustments, and had yet to inform them of the changes in her plan? Imperial Tutor was still puzzled after much thought. Instead, Huang Yueli smiled and said, "Imperial Tutor, you were trying to say that Li Shuer wanted to capture me to teach me a lesson, right? But it is just too unfortunate. Your Seventh Princess had indeed gone to my place, but in the middle of her journey. She was burning with desire, took off all her clothes, and did a striptease, and hugged her own guards while doing illicit stuff. TSK, TSK. Everyone in the entire royal palace would have already heard of this." "What?" Imperial Tutor gave a shocking expression, retorting unbelievably. "What rubbish are you sprouting? Why would the Seventh Princess do such a thing? Do you think I would believe this?" Huang Yueli didn't think much of it and shrugged her shoulders. "Believe it or not, it doesn't matter to me. Anyway, the person who is embarrassed is not me. What's more, the minute you leave the royal treasury and head back to the palace, you naturally find out about everything." Saying that, she suddenly stopped, as though she had remembered something else. "Oh, that's right. I almost forgot about this. If you want to return to the palace, you must be able to retain your life in order to do so. Otherwise, you'd probably never find out for the rest of your life on what had actually happened to Li Shuer. What do you want to do to me? If you were to proceed at random and offend me, the Emperor would definitely not let you off easily." Huang Yueli laughed. "Imperial Tutor, you've lived like a prince for too long a time that your brain isn't really working. The Emperor protects you naturally, is because your power is strong and can bless the entire South U Kingdom. But if I can deal with you, naturally it means that my power is stronger than you. Weighing the pros and cons, whose side would the Emperor stand on? You can also listen on." Imperial Tutor was stifled till he turned silent, because everything that Huang Yueli had mentioned was correct. In soaring heaven's continent, where martial skills was absolute, whoever held more power, whoever would be justified, and whose fists were harder would represent truth. If Huang Yueli were to kill him, it would mean that she was much stronger. Who would, for a dead person, go against a much stronger living being? Huang Yueli looked at his wrinkled pale face and chillingly said, "At your age, you're still so naive, acting like a little boy. Are you here to perform a comedy?" Another wave of melancholy rushed up with Imperial Tutor and narrowly bringing up any rage. What was this? She actually said he was innocent, and yet he had really been innocent for that one moment. Imperial Tutor gritted his teeth as he hissed, "Today you're lucky, but you want to kill me? Your thinking is too wishful. I still have a life-saving trump card. If you really wish to take a risk out of desperation, then don't blame me for perishing along with you." "A life-saving trump card? That's good. But then don't be stingy and use it all. But that is if you still have the opportunity to live past today." Huang Yueli clapped her hands and instructed to Immerse, who was standing behind. "Brother Immerse, I'd like to trouble you to drag these dregs to the 5th floor." Immerse responded, "Yes," and immediately went forward. He didn't have that much patience compared to those servants at the Valiant Martial Manor, willing to drag one by one nicely along. As a fifth-degree realm expert, doing these heavy manual work was like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. If it wasn't his future mistress's instructions, he wouldn't even bother. Once he really did it, it was naturally plain brutal. He simply threw these people entirely into a pile and stacked them up one by one. After they had been stacked together, he found a rope and tied them all together. Among those who had surrounded MOE were third-degree realm experts and above. Not just the Imperial Tutor, the rest of them were all famed experts around the South Kingdom and held some sort of status within the kingdom, and were the subject of flattery of others, who would knew that once they had fallen into MOE's hands, they were thrown here and there, even worse than a sack. Imperial Tutor was howling himself hoarse in the entire process. "You brat! You dare! You dare to treat me like this! What do you think you're doing? I will never let you off easily. Let me go, I tell you." MOE had struck their meridians, and they were completely unable to move, so all they could do was to bark some sounds out. He naturally would not bother about them, and very quickly, he had tied them into the shape of a rice dumpling. After which, he dragged them along effortlessly and dragged all of them upstairs at one go. The fifth floor was the Royal Treasury's treasure pavilion, and everything inside were extremely valuable treasures. When Huang Yueli came previously, she had intentionally ransacked the entire treasure pavilion one round and had already familiarized herself with all the surrounding mechanisms at the back of her palm. She commanded MOE to drag that lump of rice dumpling to one wall. "All right, just leave them, there will do. Don't ever step on that brick in front of that place. Otherwise, when it activates the mechanism, even I will find it difficult to save you." MOE quickly withdrew his foot, which had almost overstepped the line, and carefully put the people down. Following that, he returned to Huang Yueli's side as he bowed. "Third Miss, what should we do next? Please give me your orders." This? Huang Yueli blinked her eyes as that pair of splendidly brilliant big eyes suddenly sparkled, looking extremely delicate and cute. But those who knew her had already secretly gave a chilling shudder. You can also listen on. Imperial Tutor had not understood her well and didn't know that danger was lurking nearby as he continued to scream and shout in an attempt to threaten Huang Yueli. MOE had begun to grieve silently for the Imperial Tutor in his heart. Huang Yueli thought for a moment, and suddenly her eyes shone brightly as she said, "That's right. I recalled. As I was saying, someone seems to be missing here. So, it's the Crown Prince. Today's plot was schemed by him single-handedly, and in the end, he escaped alone? Where on earth would you find such a good deal?" MOE responded, "What is Third Miss planning to do?" Huang Yueli replied, "Help me capture Li Maju in here. I have my own plans." When MOE heard what Huang Yueli said, he didn't move out immediately. Instead, he hesitated for a moment and replied, "Third Miss, this isn't too good an idea. These fellows here are all third and fourth degree realm practitioners. Although I have already struck their meridians, but if anything were to happen and you being here alone, it would be very dangerous." Huang Yueli laughed and said, "No issue, don't worry about it. Such a small matter. I'm still able to handle it myself." However, MOE didn't move an inch. He naturally knew that this third miss had heaven-defying tricks up her sleeves and was extremely awesome, but he was already worried that she might belittle her enemy and cause a mishap because of that. What's more, since the practitioners here are much higher than her level by several realms, if anyone had any secret method to remove the restriction, then Huang Yueli would not be able to handle it. Huang Yueli looked at his troubled expression and smiled while shaking her head. Brother MOE, you actually don't believe in me. All right, I'll just clamp them up together." Clamp them up together? MOE was filled with bewilderment. What did that mean? The very next moment, his mouth turned into an O shape. Huang Yueli outstretched her hand and pressed on the wall. Hearing a bam sound, the two huge metal rows of teeth on the two sides of the wall swung ferociously towards the middle to join together, like a rat trap, and clamped those people right in the middle. Ouch! So painful! The clamp was originally very tight and was meant for one person only, But now that it was clamping so many people at one time, all of them were squeezed into a bundle, only feeling that their ribs were almost being smashed into pieces, and all of them began groaning one after another. A few sweat beads started to fall from Mo's forehead. No wonder Third Miss warned him not to step over that piece of brick, so there was such a sinister mechanism hidden. Just a little bit more, he would have been like a street rat, and the person who was clipped there would have been him. But looking at the current situation, he was relieved. In this heavily mechanized treasury, such a high-level armament master like Huang Yueli would probably be much safer than a fifth-degree realm practitioner like him. So he really didn't need to worry much for her. Mo bumped his fist towards Huang Yueli as a form of respect, turned and left towards the East Palace wing to capture the Crown Prince. Huang Yueli had nothing to do since she was all alone in the royal treasury. She took a tour on the 5th floor of the treasure pavilion and removed all the treasures kept in several rooms and kept it into her own realm ring. As she was keeping it, she discontentedly criticized, "Sign, this South Yu kingdom is really poor. When I came the last round, there were several not bad-looking treasures, but after those have been removed, there's no additional new pieces, and what's left are just these junk." Huang Yueli mumbled her complaints in a whisper, and her tone was not high, but in the imperial tutor's ears, it made his heart tremble tremendously. So the thief who had stolen away a huge amount of treasures in the royal treasury just over a month ago was you. You can also listen on. Huang Yueli was all smiles as she replied, "Yes, wasn't it me? Imperial tutor, your age is really catching up. Your response is really retarded. Only now did you realize this. But you're only in a first-degree realm. How is it possible?" Imperial tutor was agape and tongue-tied as his eyes filled with shock and more shock. At that time, Huang Yueli was heavily locked down by the golden scaled guards, and yet she was able to escape from the royal treasury. Moreover, Imperial tutor had followed behind her for quite a long distance, but in the end he was not even able to touch a single strand of her hair. Instead, she made a fool out of him. Before that day, Imperial tutor had never been in such a wretched situation for a very long time, so he bore a grudge against the thief ever since. But no matter what, he was not able to witch that person out. Now that he found out about the truth, the Imperial tutor almost wanted to shed tears. How was he being made a fool by a lass who was in the first-degree realm lass, which was such a far distance from him? Huang Yueli, smiling, replied, "I have yet to thank you. If it hadn't been for Imperial tutor's leniency, it would not have been that easy for me to get the treasures out from the royal treasury." Imperial tutor was speechless. In what way was he lenient? And he was not able to catch her at all. As Huang Yueli was saying all these, her hands didn't slow down and continued to empty various treasures from their shelves and kept it all within her realm. The previous time, she was on a tight schedule and was afraid of getting discovered by others, so she only took the most valuable items. But today, since she had no misgivings and had completely fallen out with the Imperial tutor and others, why would she need to conceal the whole story? There were quite a number of treasures which she honestly did not value, but no matter how small a mosquito was, it was still a piece of meat. Even though she don't value it, it wouldn't mean that other people would not value it. If she could auction it off at an auction house, perhaps those were able to exchange for some spirit stones or spirit jades. Imperial tutor looked at Huang Yueli's well-trained and speedy actions, and his brows creased as he let out an extremely painful expression. All these treasures were accumulated bit by bit over the years, and some had been personally procured by himself, leading the Golden Scale Guards to dangerous grounds, and now it was all being swept into the waste pouch of Lass that he hated deeply. "Byraoli, aren't you full of guts? Stop, quickly stop now." Huang Yueli didn't bother about him and continued to sweep all the treasures cleanly on the 5th floor before running downstairs to continue on her collection. Imperial tutor gritted his teeth for half a day, and as time ran past, he realized that something was not right. The area of the treasury was only so big, and the treasures kept within were naturally not few. Some of the treasures were rather large pieces, and yet Huang Yueli had kept one piece after another into her space, as if it was not full at all. How much was her realm ring able to contain? And there was something more shocking. That was although she had been running to and fro among the different floors, and had swept every single shelf cleanly, as though she was packing her own home storage room. Heaven knows, there were numerous mechanisms in every single room of the 5th floor, and various traps were also set up on the other floors, but not only had Huang Yuli not breached a single one of them, she also easily got hold of everything. A huge tidal wave arose in Imperial Tutor's heart. Even for himself, even if he held the treasury's map in his hands, he would still need to be extremely careful, afraid that once he loses caution, his life would be buried within this place. But this lass, how'd she do it? Huang Yuli spent just over 2 hours and had already finished collecting about 70 to 80% of the 4th floor's treasures. You can also listen on. Just at this moment, Mo Yi's figure was like a gust of wind and engulfed himself into the royal treasury. In Mo Yi's hands was a huge gunny sack, and on the opening of the gunny sack was a straw rope tightly sealing it. The gunny sack bobbed up and down in all sorts of directions, and there was a faint noise coming from it. It was obvious that something alive was in it. Mo Yi came before Huang Yuli and bowed to show his respect. "Third miss, the thing that you wanted, your subordinate has already brought it. Do you want to check the item?" Huang Yuli nodded and said, "And let's take a look at it." Mo Yi opened the sack and shook it. Tumbling, a figure of a person rolled out, and it rolled for several rounds on the ground before it finally came to a halt. And that person was the Crown Prince. Li Majuan's expression seemed a little dazed, as though he wasn't sure where he was at, as he blankly looked to his left and right for several moments. Huang Yuli immediately understood what had happened. She guessed that Mo Yi didn't officially cross hands with Li Majuan and just directly gunny sack him from behind, and just brought him here after sacking him up. She almost laughed out loud, because Mo Yi actually had a gift for playing tricks on people. This should be because he had followed Li Moying around for too long, so one takes on the color of one's company. Crown Prince absently turned his head around, and the first sight that falls into his eyes was the bundled-up Imperial Tutor and others. His eyes opened wide in astonishment. "Master, you! Why are you here? What happened to all of you?" When Imperial Tutor saw Crown Prince, his face was filled with sorrow and melancholy. "Majuan, you! Why are you so careless? You really got captured by that damn lass? Sai, what should we do now?" "What damn lass? Master, why are all of you trapped in that mechanism? I shall think of a way to release all of you." "AI, don't come over. Be careful of falling into Byroli, that damned lass's tricks. Your master was careless, so I fell into her trickery." Byroli? When Li Majuan heard her name, he turned his head and his sight fell onto Huang Yuli's face as he gave a shriek. "Byroli, what are you doing here?" Huang Yuli had been watching this show for some time and replied smilingly, "Crown Prince, long time no see. The last time we met, I recall your meridians were severed totally, and I was still worried for you, that you might become a disabled person. To think that you're actually all right and there's no impairments to your movements, this is really a surprise. What kind of miracle medication did you take?" Crown Prince was originally slightly dazed, but when he heard her words, his expression grew uglier by the minute as the veins on his forehead started to pop out. This was called touching one's tender spot. Li Majuan's biggest insult throughout his entire life was to have his meridians severed in front of everyone at the Peach Blossom Banquet, and he almost became a disabled person. It was only until a few days ago when Li Schwerer returned and gave him a 5th-grade pill, which allowed him to stand up again. However, even till now, his power had yet to completely recover. Li Majuan clenched and gritted his teeth as he stared at Huang Yuli and replied viciously, "Byroli, all these are done by you and that bastard Li Moying. You dare to do such a thing like this to me. Haven't you thought that I would take revenge? You came at the right timing. I thought you were scared and had hidden yourself. Now that you're here in front of me to look for death, don't blame me for dealing with you." A chilly smile formed on Huang Yuli's lips. What Crown Prince had said really scared me so much. I'm so scared. I wonder how are you intending to deal with me? You can also listen on. The gaze in Li Majuan's eyes seemed extremely gloomy and chilling. Since you want to know, then I shall tell you. Doesn't Li Moying like you and want to make you his royal consort? If he had knew that when he left South Yu Kingdom and you had been sold to the largest brothel in South Yu Kingdom to receive guests and made him wear 10,000 green hats, I wonder if he would die from an excess of anger? Huang Yueli's smile gradually disappeared as she replied frostily. Crown Prince, that's a really malicious method. Too bad. He was just dreaming and had no sight at all. He had already been gunny sacked and brought to her, and without thinking of the consequence, thinking of begging her to spare him. Instead, he was daydreaming of such a dream. Li Majuan saw her stiff face and thought she was frightened and became even more complacent. But then again, you have such delicate skin and you seem to become prettier by the day. I'm one who knows how to cherish beautiful women. So if you were to serve thousands of men by the pillow, it's really a waste of good stuff. If you wish to follow me instead, I can still let you off. Huang Yueli sneered coldly. You really deserve to be called the Crown Prince. Your dream is really beautiful, but you're simply looking for death. I had thought that since you could finally get down from the bed, you'd cherish your life even more, but I've never thought that you were still looking for death. How can I not grant you that wish? Li Majuan's eyes turned wide and thought that he had heard wrongly. What did you say? You say I am looking for death? Shouldn't this lass be weeping bitter tears and begging for mercy? Without Li Moying as her backing, how would this lass still dare to go against him? Even if Li Moying had left his powerful guard behind, but he was the nation's crown prince. Just a normal guard. Would he dare to strike against the crown prince? He had wanted to capture Huang Yueli to warm up his bed, and she thought that she could reject it? As Li Majuan thought of these and wanted to continue scaring her, it would be best if she was scared out of her wits and automatically offer herself to him. In this way, it would be the best way to insult Li Moying. But just as his face surfaced a glint of complacent smile, he felt a wave of profound energy coming towards him. This profound energy was pure and ferocious, and its attack power was abnormally strong. Li Majuan sensed danger and quickly moved to avoid it. However, he was still too late. The profound energy had surrounded him in all directions, and no matter where he ran to, he was unable to hide from it. Bam! Li Majuan felt an intense pain from his chest, and when he lowered his head, he saw a delicate fair fist smashing on his chest. And right in front of him was that young lady whose little face was stiff like a rock. It was Huang Yueli? How could that be? Just as this thought flashed across his mind, at the same moment, he was already flying out and heavily falling onto the ground. Li Majuan opened his mouth and had barely spoke a word when a mouthful of blood rushed up and sprayed out. Following that, a few pieces of teeth also dropped onto the ground. His expression changed precipitously, and when he wanted to climb up, he found himself unable to stand. His four limbs emitted tremors of intense pain as though it had been broken. Just as he was struggling nonstop, Huang Yueli had step by step slowly walked to his side. Li Majuan clenched his teeth, and looking upwards, he raised his chin to look at the young lady. Using such a position to look at someone was a first time for Li Majuan. He just realized that he was prostrating on the ground, and the feeling that he felt from the other party's sight was actually so lowly and insignificant, as though he was even less worthy than a speck of dust. And the Huang Yueli now indeed looked like she was high and almighty. You can also listen on. Bye. Bye, Ruoli. It's you. Crown Prince spat out another mouthful of blood, but he still blurted out these words vaguely. He had seen Huang Yueli struck earlier, and had felt for himself that huge resistance which he was able to go against, but it was until the minute he had fell heavily injured on the ground did he finally realize that he was unable to react at all. It was simply unbelievable, absolutely an impossible thing to have happened. If it wasn't for the bouts of pain reverberating from his body, which made him believe that he was still conscious, Crown Prince would have definitely thought that he was still in dreamland, having a nightmare. He was a defensive, profound, Realm 7 stage practitioner. As for Huang Yueli, She was only in Chi Profound Realm 9 stage. With such a huge difference of realm between the two of them, it was practically impossible to bypass ranks and challenge him. No matter how abnormal Huang Yueli's innate gift was, even if she had done a breakthrough recently, she should also be in Defensive Profound Realm 1st stage. How was it possible that she had the power to battle against him? But fact had proven itself. She had not battled him, but had crushed him. He could not even withstand one stance from Huang Yueli, and he had already been injured to this stage. How was that possible? Crown Prince was still puzzled after much thought. Huang Yueli had started to speak in a frosty tone. Want me to follow you? The man I want must be the strongest, undefeatable, and peerless expert. As for you, have you even taken a look at your own reflection to see if you're worthy? Upon hearing that, Li Majuan couldn't help but spat out another mouthful of blood. He had never been despised by any woman in his entire lifetime, but unfortunately, the person who had been beaten to the ground by Huang Yueli was him. It was entirely justified when Huang Yueli said he wasn't worthy. Huang Yueli looked at how angry Li Majuan had gotten, to the point of almost fainting, and a chilling smile appeared slightly. Her wish had never changed since 30 years ago, and that person in her heart had long become Soaring Heaven's Continent's #1 expert, just a small character like Crown Prince, and he expected her to be his concubine? He was listening by the side, and his mouth had long agape and tongue-tied. Third Miss had really dared to claim. Could she be telling the truth? Only marry the strongest, undefeatable, and peerless expert? If his master were to hear these, he wondered what he would think. Although his master had an incredible innate gift, but he was still, after all, pretty young. For now, the distance between him and the #1 expert spot was still rather far apart. Brother Imo, what are you thinking about? Huang Yueli's calling woke Imo from his trance. He hurriedly recovered his sense as he spoke respectfully. My apologies, 3rd Mississippi. Your subordinate had been absent-minded. Is there anything you need me to do? Huang Yueli threw a glance at Li Majuan and smilingly said, Crown Prince had been bedridden for too long, so when he stood up, his brain couldn't cope. As an heir apparent to the throne, how can he be so muddle-headed? Why not we give him a helping hand and let him continue to lie in bed for a while more? Yes. He was stunned for a moment before he managed to react. Huang Yueli had intended to sever Li Majuan's meridians again. Unfortunately, although her battle skills were outstanding and could defeat Li Majuan easily, but she was after all just in 2nd degree realm. She was unable to be like Li Moying to achieve the effect of severing the meridians of Li Majuan. Only experts who were several realms higher could do that. So this dirty and strenuous work had not fallen onto Mo-E again. Mo-E resignedly walked over and squatted down beside Li Majuan. As he pressed against Li Majuan's arm, he gradually imbued his profound energy. Not sure if it was due to his weak ability or was it done intentionally. When the process of severing the meridians was done by Mo-E, it was done at a snail-pace speed. You can also listen on. Following each movement made by Mo-E, Li Majuan let out several blood-curdling screeches. When Li Moying had severed his meridians previously, it was done instantaneously. But when Mo-E did it this round, it was done by crushing each meridian one by one, and the entire process was extremely long. Li Majuan could distinctly felt the pain from every single inch of his meridian being crushed. This type of pain seemed to come deeply from the soul, causing him totally unable to suppress his volume. Byruoli, you're looking for death, you dared to do this to me. I will not let you off. Huang Yueli heard his clamoring, but there wasn't a trace of fear on her face. Instead, it was filled with a relaxed smile. Look at what you're saying. Since Crown Prince had no intention to let me off, then even if I were to let you off now, it would be useless. So I might as well take the opportunity to torture you now. Otherwise, if you were to make reprisals against me in future, won't I lose out? Crown Prince was rendered speechless, because what Huang Yueli said was absolutely right. Since she knew he would take revenge, of course she would have to eliminate him completely. If he was in her shoes, he would do the same too. If he wanted Huang Yueli to let him off, by right, he should entreat piteously. But for such an arrogant person like Crown Prince to beg Huang Yueli, he was not able to open his mouth at all. It was because of his hesitation for just that quarter of an hour. The splitting pain from his severed meridians quickly made him abandon his last pride and started pleading for mercy. "Bai, third Miss Bai, please have mercy. I beg you. Please let me go. Let me have a straightforward." Crown Prince tossed and turned as he rolled around the ground, repeatedly pleading for mercy. Hearing his bouts of sorrowful pain, even the imperial tutor and others had turned green from fright, drained of all colors. All of them casted their sights on Moe and Huang Yueli, their gazes filled with terror and revulsion, but they did not dare to let out any sounds just because they were afraid of diverting their attention to their side, henceforth causing them to fall into the same tragedy. It was to the extent that Crown Prince had almost fainted from the pain before Huang Yueli asked Moe to stop. Li Majuan's face was pale white as cold sweat had drenched his entire body. Due to the tossing and turning and struggling on the ground, his clothes were sodden with dirt as he looked utterly grimy. At this present moment, he did not look one bit like his usual aloof demeanor. Instead, he looked as dirty as a roadside beggar. Huang Yueli slowly walked in front of him and stopped. Li Majuan was unable to speak any words out, so he could only look at her bitterly. Huang Yueli lowered her tone as she spoke. "Crown Prince, do you think I'm too vicious? No matter how you begged, I didn't let you off. But that year, when a 6-year-old child was whipped by you, bitterly pleading for mercy, have you ever thought of letting him off? When he was made to kneel by you on that icy cold ground as a punishment, have you ever thought of letting him off? He was only a child, and he had a weak disposition, without even a bit of cultivation talent." Her voice was very light and soft, as though it was reverberating from somewhere far away. But when he heard these words, Crown Prince's heart became abnormally shocked and surprised. The child she had spoken of naturally was Li Moing. Crown Prince had never thought that Huang Yueli would torture him in this way, just because she was taking revenge for Li Moing. Huang Yueli continued, "Crown Prince, did you know while Li Moing's potential had long surpassed you, but yet he had been silently tolerating and not kill you? Did you really think that with the so-called status of a small country's crown prince, it was enough to scare him off? Or did you think he was kind enough to treat you like his own brother?" You can also listen on. How would I know? What would he want to do? Crown Prince's was tongue-tied and didn't know how to reply to that. At the Peach Blossom Banquet, Li Moing's attitude towards him had been normal. Crown Prince had thought that even though he had tried to murder Li Moing when he was young, but since Li Moing was just a piece of trash and his life or death was determined by him, his royal brother's mood, so naturally he would not exact revenge. It was until Crown Prince had almost injured Huang Yueli that Li Moing finally flew into a rage and shattered his meridians in just one blow. Crown Prince had also retrospect on this matter. Since Li Moing was able to cultivate long ago, and since his cultivation was so high, why did he restrain his emotions for so many years and not flared up? Was it because of that near-death incident when he was only 6 years old, that fever which had burned up so badly that his previous memories had been forgotten? However, upon hearing Huang Yueli's words, Crown Prince suddenly realized that not only did Li Moing didn't lose his memories and had not forgotten everything in the past, he had even related his part to his fiancée. Since that was the case, why would he let him get off scot-free for so many years? Huang Yueli looked at his terrified expression, and as a flush of elatedness rushed up, a sliver of grief welled up too. Just thinking back about how Li Moing had suffered under this man in front of her, she was unable to control the heartache and fury building up within her. She coldly sneered. That was because, before Empress Ming passed on, she had made him swear to heavens that he would definitely not do anything to fight against his siblings and break your imperial father's heart. Otherwise, did you think you can live until today? Upon hearing these, besides being shocked, Crown Prince suddenly heaved a sigh of relief. It turned out that Empress Ming had deeply loved their imperial father so much that she even made her own son took such an oath. Since that was the case, doesn't it mean that no matter under what condition, Li Moying would not be able to kill him? This was equivalent to an amnesty medal. No matter how powerful Li Moying was or how high his cultivation went, under the restriction of such an oath, he had nothing to fear. After all, to stand by one's oath was extremely important to practitioners. If news were to leak out, one would be despised by everyone under the heavens. There was finally some life on Crown Prince's pale face. By Ruoli, since that's the case, aren't you going to release me? Don't tell me you're going to go against the oath and kill me instead? Crown Prince had thought that since he had fallen into Huang Yueli's hands this round, he would definitely end up dead. He had never expected that she could not do anything to him. With this thought in mind, he relaxed slightly. However, Huang Yueli sneered chillingly. Crown Prince, don't you think you've set your mind at ease too soon? The person who swore that he would not take your life is Li Moying, not me. Since he can't put his hands to it, I'm very happy to share his worries for him. You? Crown Prince instantly sprouted a head full of sweat. What do you want? You his fiancé. If you were to kill me and word leaks out, the debt will ultimately fall back on Li Moying, and he will still despised by everyone. So what? Huang Yueli replied disapprovingly. I will kill whoever I want to. Even if it's Li Moying, he will not be able to control me. The fear that Crown Prince had felt had risen to the peak. Furthermore, the torment within his heart was much more serious than his physical injuries. He had a feeling that Huang Yueli was enjoying his panic-stricken expression, so she had been making a fool out of him. Every single time, she would give him a little hope thinking that he would be able to escape unscathed, but immediately after that, she would crush that hope to pieces. You can also listen on. The ups and downs had already caused him to enter a perturbed state of mind as he was subjected to torment. Crown Prince felt that he was about to go mad. Luckily, just at this moment, Huang Yueli seemed to have enough fun, or perhaps it was out of her goodwill that she decided to let him off. She stood upright and said, Initially, I wanted to cut you up into 1,000 pieces to exact revenge for Li Moying. Just too bad, you're still of use to me, so I'll let you retain your life for a while more. But although I won't kill all of you personally, whether you can leave the royal treasury alive would be another case. So here's wishing you good luck. Saying that, she turned her head to call upon M.O.E. Brother M.O.E., on the way in, did you fancy any treasures? Whichever you've taken a fancy on, just go ahead and keep it. Don't stand on ceremony with them. M.O.E. laughingly replied. Third, miss, to tell the truth, when I was on my way in earlier, I had already kept some pieces of magical beast cores and spirit jades. The rest were all a load of worthless stuff, and it was troublesome to move it all, so your subordinate couldn't be bothered. Huang Yueli nodded. Since that's the case, we should get going as it's not early anymore. Yes. Huang Yueli led him out of the treasury's main entrance and strutted right out. Leaving behind them was an immobile crown prince whose meridians had been severed for the second time, and a huge bundle of third and fourth degree realm experts who were clamped up like a bunch of rats. Imperial Tutor heaved a sigh of relief when he saw Huang Yueli and Mo.Yi's departure. He tried to shift his profound energy to his surroundings in an attempt to shake off the ropes. Quickly, everyone worked together and blast this clamp apart, or at least try to loosen these ropes. The clamp mechanism is not too far off. We must think of a way to reach that area. Right? Everyone listened to Imperial Tutor. The few of them worked hard together and finally broke the rope. Just as they were preparing to break apart the clamp, they felt a slight tremor within the treasury. Do any of you felt that the room is moving? Yes. Don't tell me you have the same feeling. I thought it was my misperception. It's real. All of them looked at their surroundings in shock, but the four walls didn't seem to have any changes. But there seemed to be something slightly, barely unnoticeable change. What kind of situation was this? Only Imperial Tutor expressed in matchless, appalling expression. No good. That wretched lass had activated the Royal Treasury's self-destruction mechanism. Self-destruction mechanism? What is that? Everyone knew it sounded anything but reassuring, and as they were raising questions, they had already started to break out in cold sweat. Imperial Tutor's expression became even more imposing. This self-destruction mechanism was set up in case of war, where if we were to encounter the situation where we were not able to move the treasures in time and did not wish to let the other party gain the treasures, so under no alternative would we activate this switch. Once it has been activated, the surrounding four walls will gradually draw close to the core until the walls have completed closed up and all the items are crushed to smithereens. Haven't you noticed that the surrounding space have been gradually getting smaller? The others carefully observed for a moment, and everyone's faces took a huge change. It's really so. Why did it come to this? What should we do? That's it. Don't tell me I'm really going to die here. Imperial Tutor, Sir Imperial Tutor, quickly think of an idea. How can we escape from here? Everyone were shooting their mouths off, pleading with the Imperial Tutor for help. However, in the Imperial Tutor's heart, he was even more anxious and uncertain than anyone else. You can also listen on. Imperial Tutor was very clear that the self-destruction mechanism in the Royal Treasury was an extremely top-secret information, and it wasn't until the demise of the entire country before it would be activated. So the only person who knew how to activate the self-destruction mechanism was the Emperor. Even the Crown Prince was not qualified to get associated with this top-secret information, so naturally Imperial Tutor did not know any better. But now, this mechanism had suddenly been activated. How did Huang Yuli get to know of this top secret? How could she possibly activate the self-destruction mechanism? Surely it could not have been told to her by the Emperor personally, right? No, this was impossible. Or could it be that the Emperor had already decided to leave the position of Crown Prince to Prince Yuang, so he conveyed the top secret information to him, and Prince Yuang let the information out to Huang Yuli. The more Imperial Tutor thought, the more flustered he became. But to him, the most important thing now was to quickly escape from the clamp and from this hellish place. Otherwise, not only him, even the Crown Prince will be going to die here today. He spoke with a gloomy expression. Everyone. Normally we are locked in constant strife, and everyone would have your own life-preserving amulet, but today, we might just die here. So everyone, stop hiding your life-preserving amulet, bring it out. All of us only have this once chance. Even though Huang Yuli didn't witness it with her own eyes, she could roughly guess what happened in the treasury. She took quick light steps and brought Mo back to the valiant martial manner. Today she had tormented some lowly dregs, but what made her happiest was that she had personally executed corrective punishment on Crown Prince. She had long been displeased with the Crown Prince, a hypocrite who considered himself to be a Casanova. If he were to bully her, she would not bother, but he had even taken action against such a young child. Thinking about the handsome looks on Lemoyne, how cute could he have been when he was young? If she had such an adorable little baby, she would smile even in her dreams. Huang Yuli thought about the original version of Lemoyne, and her lips curled up slightly. Even she had not noticed how gentle her smile was. This kind of smile had been caught in Mo Yi's eyes, and he was surprised by it, and took several glances at her, thinking whether he should open his mouth or not. Huang Yuli caught his gazes and turned around to ask, "Brother Mo, what did you want to say?" Mo replied, "Crown Prince and the rest, will they really be buried alive in there?" Huang Yuli shrugged her shoulders as she answered, "Surely it won't be that tragic." Although that self-destruction mechanism had been activated, but I'd made some slight adjustments to it, so the speed of closing was slower by 3 times of the normal. In Imperial Tutor's hands was the distribution map of the Royal Treasury's mechanisms, so if they were to grab hold of time, they should still be able to escape at the very last moment. Mo responded, "I see. I had thought that. Third Miss, you're really intending to get rid of them all at one go." "I wanted to." Huang Yuli apportioned her arms, but unfortunately if the Crown Prince, Imperial Tutor, and the others had all died, this matter would blow up. By then I would have to leave the South U Kingdom. Now it's just nice. I still need the Crown Prince to be my scapegoat. As she said that, her mouth let out an astute smile. Mo heard and hurried replied, "Third miss, actually you need not stay on in South Kingdom. With your outstanding talent, if you were to wander and experience the world, it would be good as well. Your subordinate can bring you to the sect to find my master. With your innate gift and status as master's fiancé, I'm sure you can successfully enter the sect and learn even higher level skills. You can also listen on." Huang Yueli was stunned for a moment, as she had never expected Mo to say such a thing, but immediately following that, she shook her head. "Better not. I still have some matters to settle in South Kingdom. Besides that, isn't Li Moying's sect extra secretive? I know of some reputable sect's rules. Although of some the disciples have parents and children, but they're not allowed anywhere near the sect. For someone like me to appear there suddenly, it's just not right. That's different. Master is not any ordinary disciple, and in the sect, no one dares to go against Master. What's more, the feelings Master has for you is different, so naturally he will protect you." He spoke favorably of his master. However, Huang Yueli continued to shake her head. "Forget it. This matter is too early to be discussed upon now. I still have plenty of things which I want to do." He wanted to continue persuading her, but upon seeing Huang Yueli's end of discussion expression, he swallowed the words stuck in his throat back into his stomach. The entire journey back was silent. He didn't dare to make his future mistress angry, while Huang Yueli had fallen into deep thoughts. Not that she had never considered leaving South Kingdom. In actual fact, she was pretty sure that she would be leaving this place rather soon, and it was impossible to waste too much time in South Kingdom. Her focus was to use the fastest speed possible to continue cultivating. Only when she could step on the peak, then would she be able to find out the truth about her past life. If she were to stay in this small place for too long, not only was she unable to get the resources which would in turn affect her cultivation, the surrounding geniuses were not enough, so she would not gain enough competition, and it would likely sap away at practitioners while causing their cultivation to come to a standstill. To an experienced practitioner like Huang Yueli, she was most unlikely to make this type of mistake. So leaving was a must. But before leaving the South Kingdom, Huang Yueli wanted to look for traces of the treasury, which Bai Lu Feng had left behind. Previously, she had found the jade pendant in the blood feather silk cage, but had not known the exact use for it. Huang Yueli always believed that she was able to find another clue within the South Kingdom. Now that her body was of the flame spirit physique and with such shocking cultivation condition, this was definitely not something coincidental, so her background shouldn't be that simple. In order to hasten her cultivation, she must first find out the secret behind her background, and naturally, the simplest way was to find out from the clue that Bai Lu Feng had left behind. Of course, even if it wasn't to look for her parents, Huang Yueli had never considered to look for Li Moying at his sect. Although Li Moying treated her very well, and she didn't dislike him, but between them, there was still other forces of obstruction, and that was Mu Chengying. Just recalling the love entanglement affairs in her previous life many years ago, the heartbreak and regret that she continuously haunt her at night, Huang Yueli was very sure that her feelings towards Mu Chengying had been deeply etched within her soul, unable to be diminished. As for Li Moying, perhaps he might be the type of person that she liked, but they were destined to meet, but not fated to be together. What she could do for Li Moying was only to beat up the crown prince violently, as a way to vent his anger for him. So now that the both of them were separated because of Li Moying's sect matters was actually a good thing. The distance between them were very far apart, and without noticing, this unfathomable feeling that tugs her heartstrings would gradually disappear. By then, it would naturally come to an end and would not hurt Li Moying. After some time, she would secretly leave South Kingdom and find an opportunity to get Mo to return. In this way, it would really sever the last communication pathway between the both of them. You can also listen on. When she thought of this, Huang Yueli's mood started to weigh down. To have come to such a decision, it would be obvious how angry and disappointment Li Moying would be. However, her heart already belonged to someone else, and there was no way she would two-time the both of them, so the consequence was to break his heart. She must toughen up her mentality, as it was better to cut short the suffering. Both of them silently returned to the valiant martial manor. After a difficult day, the sky had now turned dark. Everyone in the manor were waiting anxiously, terrified that something had happened to both of them. So upon their safe arrival, everyone finally let down their tensed emotions. Huang Yueli first went to look upon the veteran Kai Wei. Seeing her entire body full of multiple injuries, she sighed with emotions. Although Kai Wei had an innate gift for cultivation, and she had already taught her the cultivation method to do so, but Kai Wei didn't pay much attention on her cultivation because she was still positioning herself as a role of servant girl. Perhaps it was because she had been a servant for such a long time, so she was not able to assume her new role so quickly. When Kai Wei saw Huang Yueli appear in front of her, she was extremely touched as she tried to get up to give curtsy. Third miss, why have you come here? It's very late now. Please go back and rest. Huang Yueli pressed down on her shoulder and helped her get back on the bed. From her realm ring, she took out several bottles of medicinal pills and left it by her bedside. Your injuries are rather serious, but luckily, it's only an external injury and had not hurt your meridians. Here are some bottles of third-grade pills. Take some later, and by tomorrow morning, you should feel much better. Kai Wei turned pale with fright. What? Third-grade pills? How much money do these cost? Third miss, your servant just needs to rest a few days, and I'll be much better. There's no need to waste these pills. And what's most, these are high-grade, life-saving pills. In what way are these high-grade? Huang Yueli replied disapprovingly. After she had advanced to the defensive profound realm, the Sky Phoenix ring also advanced alongside, and the pills and materials in it had advanced from second grade to third grade. So whatever third-grade pills she had, she shared a little with Kai Wei, which took no effort at all. She thought for a moment and took out a bottle of spirit-raising pill. This pill was something that she had brought out in the previous 1,000 treasure auction, and it had once attracted many practitioners to snatch up this. Even Bai Ruo Chi wanted it so badly that she was cheated of a small fortune out of it, and had almost ended up bankrupt. But now her realm ring was full of these spirit-raising pill, and she had as much as she needed. Huang Yueli put down the pills and said, "You don't need to help me save on these pills. Your young mistress is no longer that small, pitiful girl of the past. These pills are nothing much. And you, stop treating yourself as a lowly serving girl. If you don't wish to continue being bullied, then you need to strengthen up. I'll leave these spirit-raising pills here for you. If you're not able to advance to at least the Chi Profound Realm 5th stage within 3 months, then don't bother to come look for me again." Kai Wei's eyes turned wide unbelievably. What? Chi Profound Realm, F5th stage? How can that be possible? Your servant had just started cultivating, and there are many things that I still don't know. Second Miss, who was a genius, also spent around 2 years to reach the Chi Profound Realm 5th stage. Huang Yueli calmly replied, "Your innate gift is not much different from Bai Kuo Chi, and the cultivation method that I had taught you is of much higher grade than hers. Besides that, with the effects of these spirit-raising pills, which you should have heard of before, what reason do you have to feel that you're worse than her? You can also listen on." Kai Wei did not dare to defy her order and could only lower her head to admit the fact silently. But in her heart, she was still feeling restless, unable to believe completely that she was able to successfully cultivate to the Chi Profound Realm 5th stage. Huang Yueli didn't speak anymore. She had already come to this stage, and however more she added on would be meaningless. Kai Wei had never been confident enough, and this was entirely her own problem. What Huang Yueli could do was to give her a little more pressure with the hope that during the process of her advancement, she would be able to gain her self-confidence. Otherwise, just based on her cowardly outlook, it would be hard for her to become a real practitioner. Kai Wei's matter had also given Huang Yueli a reminder. In this batch of servants that she recruited, although they were all loyal and had a certain level of cultivation gift, but they were still picked out from the bottom rung of the ladder, and like Kai Wei, there were a number of them who lacked self-confidence. Looked like it's time to give all of them some pressure. Moreover, Just basing on this method of recruitment, it would be extremely tough, so she would need to reconsider other methods to recruit subordinates with powerful potential. Huang Yueli left from Kai Wei's room, returned directly to her own bedroom, and continued to go into closed-door cultivation. She had just completed her breakthrough this morning, and it was an entire realm of continuous breakthrough. Although her power had greatly increased, it came along with several hidden damages as well. Her breakthrough speed was too fast, and the amount of time she spent at every single stage was extremely short, practically just a couple of breaths' time. With such a situation, her had absorbed a little too much profound energy into her body, and the cultivation was not stable enough, so it would easily cause profound energy to become chaotic. Moreover, after her breakthrough, she had continuously struck out a couple of moves, which led to the profound energy in her body to encounter great fluctuations. So after she had settled all the troubling matters, the first thing she wanted to do was to continue her closed-door cultivation to stabilize her cultivation. And this round, there was no one who would come and disturb her peace. In the quiet night, Mo-e stood under a big tree not too far away, and in his arms lay a white-breasted falcon. When the white-breasted falcon saw him, it seemed very excited as it agitatedly rubbed against Mo-e for half a day until his clothes had wrinkled up. Mo-e patiently pacified it for a while and tied a small bamboo tube on one of the white-breasted falcon's leg. This white-breasted falcon was their sex's commonly used mode of communication, and within the bamboo tube laid a letter to be delivered. Li Moying had left a few birds behind when he had stayed in the South Yu Kingdom. Before he parted ways with Huang Yueli, he had repeatedly reminded Mo-e to use the white-breasted falcon to send letters and maintain contact with him. Such an intelligent person like Mo-e understood his meaning the minute he heard it. His master wanted him to note down all that had revolved around Huang Yueli as soon as possible and send the reports to him. Mo-e sometimes could not believe that his master was obviously a cool and calm character, and he especially loved to use the cold and indifferent attitude towards women. But towards Third Miss, he seemed to have changed into a different person completely, turning into a piece of chewing gum. His master had retained his best bodyguard to stay beside Third Miss. The reason was not only to ensure her safely, but more importantly, was to gain better control over the Third Miss's whereabouts and current situation. Mo-e was able to grasp Li Moying's intention, and he felt that today was the day where he must pin down a letter to Li Moying. Third Miss had just returned to the South Yu Kingdom, and had already met with so many scums who were not afraid of death, and since they dare to come forward to create trouble for her, he must naturally inform his master about this. Most importantly, Huang Yueli had personally taught the Crown Prince a lesson on behalf of Li Moying. If his master were to find out about this matter, he would definitely be ecstatic. You can also listen on. After all, during this entire duration, Mo-e served as a bystander and saw for himself how Li Moying and Huang Yueli got along. Between the both of them, Li Moying had always been the spontaneous party and had already let go of his status of a number one expert of the younger generation as he used various means and ways to pursue Huang Yueli. However, Huang Yueli kept rejecting his advances. Although the actions between them sometimes looked ambiguous, and Huang Yueli seemed to have some feelings towards Li Moying. However, from the occasional expressions of defeat in his master's eyes, it should be because Third Miss had yet to completely accept him. And this actually made Mo-e and the rest very surprised. Even though Huang Yueli had guts, great innate gift, and earned the respect of the subordinates, but no matter what, their master should be more than enough to be worthy of her. If she was dissatisfied with such an unsurpassed, innate, skilled, and peerlessly handsome man, then who did she want to marry? However, the truth was displayed right before their eyes, and that was Huang Yueli's lukewarm reaction towards Li Moying. As a subordinate, they were concerned for their master under such a situation. But now that Huang Yueli had displayed the act of revenge on behalf of Li Moying, Mo-e felt that he was able to see the light in front of the tunnel. For someone who was able to recall every single word Li Moying had mentioned, to feel anguished for Li Moying's suffering during his childhood, and to exact revenge on behalf of him, without a concern for the risks that she had to face. This act only proved that third miss also liked his master, right? Moe felt that he found a crux to the question and naturally could not wait to convey the message to Lo Moying immediately. He hoped that when his master saw this piece of news, it would raise his spirits, and once he had successfully settled the sex matters, he would be able to arrive earlier to pick up third miss. Moe had never in his wildest dream imagined that Huang Yueli was actually thinking of how to break off the relationship between Li Moying and her Sky Cloud City northeastern region. A majestic mountain stretched into the clouds, and hidden in there was the most reputable sect in the South Sky region. As Li Moying sat along the veranda, a white-breasted falcon swooped in from afar and circles several rounds in the sky before landing in front of him. He was holding on to his sword in an apathetic expression, but when he saw the bamboo tube on the white-breasted falcon's foot, the expression on his face instantly relaxed, and that set of deep black eyes was filled with anticipation. His jade-like fingers gently exerted some force, separated the bamboo tube, and removed a scroll of letter. At the first glance, Li Moying's eyes dimmed with slight disappointment. This letter was from Moe, and not his little fox's handwriting. Although he had already expected her not to have any conscience, and he gauged that she would probably have forgotten about him, but not having received any letters from her still made him feel unhappy. Li Moying quickly read further. It was almost to the ending toward the last part as he got more and more surprised. Finally, his aloof lips uncontrollably curved upwards. He hadn't expected his little fox to do such thing, to vent out his anger for him. Although he didn't witness it personally, but just thinking about it, Li Moying could roughly make out the scenario and how pathetic the crown prince had been at that time, and how melancholy he felt at that time. His little fox was really black-bellied to the core. When she wanted to fix someone, she absolutely made the other party live in utter misery, unable to choose between life or death. In this round, she had done it entirely for him. You can also listen on. Just thinking about this made Li Moying's chest filled with indescribable joy. He had always thought this little thing did not put him in her heart, and it had always been his own wishful thinking, going all out in hot pursuit. Even though he looked his usual demeanor on the surface, with his resolute approach and overbearing manner, as though he had never encountered any setbacks, not showing any signs of backing off. In reality, only he himself knew that every single time he was rejected by Huang Yueli, his heart would feel very hurt. No one would like the feeling of being rejected by the person whom they fancied. But after he found out that Huang Yueli had helped him to vent his anger, Li Moying felt that all the setbacks he had encountered was all worth it. Now, didn't his little fox put him in her heart? Otherwise, why would she took the initiative to care about how he felt? Perhaps to the person she liked, there was just this tiny little bit of feeling. Although this tiny bit was not as much as how much he felt for her, but was that really a problem at all? Practitioners with such innate gifts like them had long lives, and in future, they would have a lot of time together to slowly nurture their feelings. There would be a day where that tiny bit of like would grow to become many, many likes, and to the extent of becoming love. As long as he could get this little fox, what he had was plenty of patience and time. Li Moying kept the letter away and took out another piece of paper, penning down a few words of reply. His letter was very short, only indicating that everything was going on smoothly in the sect, and not too long later, he would be able to return to South Yu Kingdom. With that, he changed the topic and hinted to Moe that for future replies, it must be supplemented with Huang Yueli's letter in her handwriting. With that, he stuffed the letter back into the bamboo tube and hung it back onto the white-breasted falcon's leg. "Go," he said as he released the falcon into the sky with a wave of his hand. Looking at the white-breasted falcon spread its wings and skitter into the sky, Li Moying's smile hanging on his lips had not vanished. That little thing's mouth was usually very rigid and had never given him any nice words, but in the end, when he wasn't looking, she had defended him. Looks like her usual rejections were Just because she was shy? Senior big brother. So you were here? When Li Moying was daydreaming, a lady's voice echoed from his back suddenly. That voice was gentle and sweet, as though the gentlest water which was flowed outwards. Just from the melodious sound was enough to make out that the owner of the voice was a peerless beauty. However, upon hearing the voice, Li Moying's smile instantly grew smaller, and the expression on his face gradually turned back to his usual frosty look. From afar, a young lady dressed in a light purplish flowy dress slowly walked towards him. She looked at most like she was 17 or 18 of age. Her skin was as fair as snow, with willow eyebrows, big eyes, and delicate features without any flaws, almost like she just walked out from a painting. Besides that, she carried a noble air of elegance, and the sleeves on her robe fluttered from her slow movement, as though an angel from heaven had descended onto earth. Anyone who had seen her would involuntarily name her with a title beauty. However, that was not the case for Li Moying. He could not even be bothered to cast her a glance. His cold, thin lips parted and spat out 2 words coldly. "What's up?" A glint of disappointment flashed past the beauty's eyes, but she still tenderly replied, "Senior brother, I heard that you have been at the Heaven Crate Valley holding on to your sword for the past 10 hours. Even though time is tight, you should still take care of your body and foregoing food and sleep just to practice your skills. You can also listen on." Beauty's melodious words was gently flowing as that pair of pretty eyes stayed glued on Li Moying. However, on that peerlessly handsome face was still the usual chilly expression. A sliver of disappointment winced upon the beauty's heart as she looked at the powerfully gifted man who had surpassed all others of his kind, including that devilish handsome face. The number of ladies who liked him was simply too many. Unfortunately, he acted in the same demeanor towards everyone else, as though he only had cultivation filled up all his thoughts, without any space for any romantic feelings. Even if it was towards his master's daughter, South Sky region's widely known #1 talented lady, Murong Fei, he was also stingy on giving a sliver of warmth. Disappointment was a definite answer, but Murong Fei's unbalanced feeling after knowing that Li Moying had treated all the women in the same way. Since no other woman was able to register in Li Moying's eyes, then this outstanding man would become hers sooner or later. The reason was because only a lady of her status and innate gift would be compatible with Li Moying. What's more, the both of them had grew up together since young, so they were considered as childhood sweethearts. For many years, Murong Fei had always been certain of this. However, just a few days ago, when her younger sister Murong and I had made her way back from the Dark Moon Forest, she also brought back a piece of shocking news. After hearing this news, she could no longer sit still and pondered incessantly. Hence, she decided to take the risk of being chased away by Li Moying and dropped by to test out his reaction. Seeing the silent Li Moying, Murong Fei summoned up all her courage and leaned slightly closer to him while stretching out that pallet of food in her hands. "Senior brother, I'm worried that your cultivation these few days have been too tiring, so I've specially made you some medicinal cuisine. Please try a little before continuing on your cultivation." Saying that, Murong Fei placed the plate on top of the big stone next to Li Moying as her slender fair hand lifted the cover and used the spoon to stir the soup. The rich, clear soup glistered in a rosy hue, and along with the stirring let out a whiff of tempting aroma spreading outwards. Murong Fei placed the soup in front of Li Moying as she smiled. "Senior brother, drink a little? I had specially gathered the dews on the snowy peak's roseleaf flower early this morning, combined with 10 over 4th grade medicinal herbs and the tenderloin of the amethyst-tailed ferret, boiling it for over 16 hours before it's finally done. This soup is best for replenishing profound energy and will aid you greatly in your cultivation. Please try some." Li Moying's vision fell upon the soup as his heart wavered slightly. He suddenly recalled the scene several days ago when he awoke on the flying ship and Huang Yueli had personally made him some food. The food that little lass made has not consisted of any exquisite ingredients, but just an ordinary bowl of minced chicken porridge and a tray of steamed dumplings. However, that indescribable great taste was the best thing that he had ever had in his entire life. Whenever he thought of how Huang Yueli had treated him ever so gently when he was an invalid, Li Moying's lips curled upwards very slightly. Murong Fei's eyes turned wide as she saw that rare smile on his lips, as her heart went thump, thump, thumping nonstop. This man was really a trouble-leveled evildoer. Usually when he put on that icy look, naturally he looked cool and smart, but with this magnificent smile unmatched in his generation, it would put any woman to shame. And he actually smiled. Murong Fei had known Li Moying for years, but the number of times he had smiled could be counted using one hand. Yet now he let out such a warm smile. You can also listen on. Even Murong Fei had never seen such a smile before. Just for that one moment, Murong Fei became dumbfounded, but after a while, she gradually regained her senses, and in her heart welled up a surge of delightfulness. She had never expected that Li Moying would smile so warmly upon seeing the soup that she made. It looked like he was extremely satisfied with the soup. Luckily, all the efforts that she had put in had not been wasted. From flipping classics to search for medicinal cuisines, which could help to restore profound energy, to subsequently paying a high price for the ingredients, and finally to have wasted so much time and effort in boiling the soup. Murong Fei shyly lowered her chin as she replied coyly, "Senior brother, don't just look. Try some?" Li Moying jolted as his thoughts remained on the kissing scenario when he and Huang Yueli were standing on the deck. The image was charming and gentle so much that he could not help but reveal a smile. However, at this moment, Murong Fei spoke out and broke into his yearning of his little fox, and that made Li Moying upset instantly. Turning back to look at the soup that Murong Fei made. Although the color was pretty, but it looked extremely loathsome, and that smell was too rich, which could simply suffocate him to death. In what way would this soup taste good? It cannot be compared to the porridge and side dish that his little fox made. As Li Moying was thinking about it, he stood up and replied, "I have no appetite. Please take it back along with you. I want to continue practicing my swordplay." Astonishment filled up Murong Fei's face as she could not understand why had Li Moying's expression suddenly changed. Why had that warm and gentle expression suddenly disappear within a blink of an eye and changed into that usual chilly demeanor? But Murong Fei didn't feel that Li Moying was upset. After all, Li Moying had just smiled. That shows that he was satisfied with the soup. Perhaps the reason for him not wanting to drink now was because of the immense pressure, and all his thoughts were concentrated on cultivation and not wasting any moment on food. Senior brother had always been like this. Not only did he have an exceedingly refined innate gift, he had also been cultivating hard, as always, which was why he was able to become the #1 expert among the South Sky region's younger generation. When she thought of this, Murong Fei's heart started to hoist the feeling of admiration. She used the most gentlest tone that she ever had and tried asking again, "Senior brother, you really shouldn't neglect your own while being like this. Even though our sect and the West Sky region's #1 sect have a wager, and it's going to start in a month's time, as you are our most important chip in the entire sect and will definitely be fighting in the final round, but do you need to push yourself that tightly? Surely you will have some time to finish up this soup, right?" Silence responded to her query, as Li Moying had already lifted his amethyst light sword and walked towards the reflective cliff, preparing to practice his swordplay once more. Murong Fei chased after him hurriedly, holding that bowl of soup in her hand and bringing it to Li Moying once again. "Senior brother, please just try one mouth. You won't need much time." When Murong Fei had rushed upwards, she suddenly came very close. Li Moying smelled that indistinct fragrance coming from her, and his brows suddenly flashed a sliver of disgust. These large sex daughters simply loved to empty the entire bottle of perfume onto themselves. But no matter what, they cannot be compared to the natural sweet fragrance coming from his little fox. He only needed to go near Huang Yueli slightly, and he would be drawn in by that fragrance, unable to control his urge to lean in closer and closer, bit by bit. But the fragrance on Murong Fei was simply overpowering, and that made him feel unbearably vulgar, totally unable to accept it. Li Moying inclined his head towards the side in an attempt to evade, but coincidentally, Murong Fei was still holding on to the bowl of soup while rushing towards him. He lost his patience and stuck out his hand. You can also listen on. You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.